Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Switch Statement Podcast. It's a podcast for investigations into miscellaneous tech topics.
This is our second episode on Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson.
Hey, John. What's going on?
Hey, Matt. I am doing well. How are you doing?
I'm mad.
You're mad?
I felt better.
Oh, man.
Better.
Dude.
Just woke up this morning, just bad headache. Boom, out of nowhere.
Oh, you had a headache? Have you been drinking enough water?
Dude, why you gotta guilt me like that? But no, probably not. My hydration is always shameful. There's people out there who if your pee is not crystal clear, you're an animal.
Yeah, no. You know, that pee being clear thing, I feel like that's...
You think that's just big water?
I think it's big water because I recently switched to the water bottle method, which I always used to sort of look down on the water bottle method.
What is it? Could you kind of enumerate the steps of the water bottle method?
Yeah, I think I just made that phrase up. But basically the water bottle method is where you just have a big ass water bottle and you fill it up repeatedly and just drink from it all the time.
Nice. Okay. I like that. That's a pretty solid method.
Yeah, so it's clearly a very sophisticated thing, but I've been doing that lately, and I feel like my hydration levels are way better than they used to be. So I'm not advocating for this strategy, but I'm just saying, in my own personal experience, the water bottle method has worked.
Yeah. No, I do. I try to do that. My problem is I always like the fizzy water. I'm all out of bubbles. I'm all out of CO2.
Oh, that's tough because I also love fizzy water. We are the minority that loves fizzy water.
Yeah. No, I'm addicted. Now it's hard for me to drink just garden variety water. But anyway, we're not here for the water podcast. We're here talking about Elon Musk.
Yeah, and Zip too. You can zip to any place.
Zip to that spot that you want to go. What do you think of the name Zip to?
I kind of like it. It's kind of cute. This whole naming thing cracks me up with Musk because he just wants to call everything X.
Yeah.
Which I guess he finally got his way. But it sounds like some of the biggest arguments he's had in his career are that he wants to call something X. And other people are like, that sounds sleazy.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like Zip 2 fit perfectly in at the time.
Yeah.
I think it's a good name, frankly. And it's funny because everybody's oh yeah, Elon hated it and he was right. But I was I don't know. I think it was clever.
I think it's
short,
great, yeah.
Easy to remember.
It's also got that kind of verb aspect to it, kind of like what Google has. Let's zip to it. I want to get French fries. Oh, zip to it.
Yeah. The one Achilles heel I would say is where is Zip 1? Is this feels like the sequel to Zip?
Using the actual numeral is strange. It also makes me think it's a successor to zipping files. This is 7-zip. This is, zip 3 through 6 somehow got lost, and this was zip 2, and now we got 7-zip.
But as you alluded, it was kind of a combination directory mapping tool. So you would use it to look up businesses in your local area and zip to those businesses.
Yeah, and they would appear on a map, which you could sort of scroll and zoom around, which, I mean, to any modern listener, this is going to sound utterly ridiculous, but this was brand new tech. This was probably completely mind-blowing at the time.
This is also crazy because this was in 1995, wasn't it? Or was this...
Yeah, exactly. This was almost like a precursor to MapQuest even, which I'm sure people don't remember MapQuest.
Right. So it does sound revolutionary for the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I was reading this, I was like, what? This actually sounds incredible. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there was probably a lot of people working on this problem, but it sounds like they were very early in sort of figuring this out. Although their business plan was strange to me. I didn't fully understand their business model. They were licensing this utility out to newspapers, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, because newspapers would have... Now, was this was a replacement for the Yellow Pages, right?
Right. Yeah, which there's a semi-famous quote where I guess they had tried to like, convince some newspaper guy to like join in on their business. And the guy was like, "What, you think you're going to replace this?" And he like chucked a White Pages, down on the table. And it's that's like, exactly what we think.
It's so funny because it's like he holds up like technology that has existed for 700 years. And it's like this old ass thing. And it's like, do you think you're ever going to be able to find a technological replacement for this super fucking old technology, essentially unmodified since Gutenberg created it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. No. Yeah, it's crazy how that people just have this inability to see the writing on the wall. Although the same thing is happening with AI. So
yeah. But apparently Elon, he starts to become super hardcore at this period, where they hired engineers to work on Zip 2. They would write code, and then after they would go home with their whole quote unquote work-life balance, Elon would go in and then just like rewrite their code.
Yes.
Without talking to them and like quote unquote fixing their fucking stupid code.
That would annoy me. That would annoy me so much.
It's funny because people think of engineers as just being like completely like asocial. It feels like people think of us as like robots where there's no social mores at all. But no, there is an engineering culture. Going in without talking to an engineer and just completely changing their code, that's part of the like, no, that's like not culturally okay to do to another engineer.
It also just seemed, because, to be clear, like I write crappy code all the time and like you have fixed it and, like it happens all the time where you fix another engineer's code or like, a lot of times engineers aren't very territorial. I would even go so far as to say if you're territorial about your code, like you're in the wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But it also just sounds like confusing and unproductive to like come in to work and like all the code you wrote yesterday has been like fundamentally changed. Like maybe some API that you wrote yesterday that you plan on using today, and it's like that API is gone. So it's more so that aspect of it that, really annoys me, I guess.
There's just so many things that are latent about code where sometimes there's code that it's just worse and the way they're doing it has no benefits. But then beyond like very simple situations, there's a bunch of trade-offs, and you could go in and someone could be doing something that looks weird and wrong and unusual and stupid, but then you realize, oh, there's this very particular circumstance that they're trying to accommodate for. And if you don't know that, like you could quote unquote fix their code in a way that
breaks everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this part of Elon sounds infuriating. I highly doubt it was the right thing to be doing. As we mentioned earlier, he fights over this Zip2 versus X name. And I guess Elon and Kimball is Elon's brother. I don't know if we mentioned that, but Kimball was actually a part of this Zip2 business.
Yeah.
And I guess they used to just get in fist fights like in the middle of the day. Which is another thing that, man, that's absurd. Like, can you imagine you're sitting there at Google, like, working on your ad server and you just see Larry and Sergey like in an office just brawling.
Yeah, I mean, engineers will frequently disagree, but I have never seen anything. It is just unbelievable. It's also important to remember that at this time, they're like, because Kimball is younger, right?
Yeah, they're like 22 or something.
Yeah, they're in their mid-20s, so it's like...
But I wanted to mention that Kimball bit Elon. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. No, it's just outrageous. And then he had to go to the hospital, didn't he?
I didn't write that in my notes, but I feel like that happened. But it cracks me up. I've fought with my brother many times, but I don't think we've ever bit each other.
They work on this for 4 years. So this is a major, they really put their time in. So in 1999, they sell their product to Alta Vista. Well, actually, the company that owns Alta Vista, Compaq, which I had no idea. I did not realize that.
Yeah, Compaq, because Compaq was a computer company.
It's a hardware, company, and they, I guess, were thinking about breaking into the search engine space, and they offered $300 million in cash for Zip2.
So crazy. That whole era was just insane with the like valuations and .com bubble.
Well, you got to think about the time. They sold it at the perfect time.
Yeah.
This was just as everything was starting to become a frenzy with the .com bubble.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Elon got 22 million, I wrote.
22 million. Yeah. And Kimball got 15.
Yeah. And he just immediately bought a McLaren F1, which I guess is what you do. I mean, that's kind of what Carmack did, right? He bought what was his car? It was a Ferrari or a...
Yeah, Ferrari sounds right.
But yeah, so that was his experience with Zip2. Now, with Zip2, I stupidly didn't write this in my notes, but I seem to recall like something that kept happening to Elon is he would be starting this company, there would be a lot of buzz around it, and he would get these rich investors, and they would sort of insist that they put like an adult in charge. And did this happen at Zip2? I want to say it did, but I didn't write the notes.
Yeah, so someone invested like $3 million or whatever into Zip2, and then they I think they said Rich Sorkin.
Okay, Rich Sorkin. And I think this is something that Elon started to get very annoyed about. He would sort of lose a little bit of control. And there was also this ostensible like, oh, but I'm in charge of the technical, I'm the CTO, so I can do whatever I want in the technical space. But Elon found that was not the case. Like, unless he was CEO, he didn't truly have control over the technology, and that bothered him.
Yeah. Well, so the details are so Rich Sorkin, this guy who's the adult in the room, he wanted to merge with this other provider called CitySearch. Musk and Kimball managed to scuttle the merger. And then Musk wants to try to become CEO, and apparently they just were like, nope, we're taking you off the board, and you're, basically they just put him in the corner wearing the dunce cap, and
yeah,
and so that's the point at which they decide to find an acquirer.
So yeah, Zip2 gets acquired. He gets $22 million. He's already a rich guy. There's a brief interlude about his first wife, whose name was Justine. This chapter had a lot more interesting and juicy bits about the Musk family. I guess they were very anti-Justine, like very vocally anti-Justine. Kimball, his brother, tried to do an intervention, I guess, to get him to not marry Justine, which, man, can you imagine? You're like about to marry someone and your family's like doing an intervention trying to prevent you. So very sad. And then one hilarious moment, they get married, they're having like a dance, and Musk sort of leans in to Justine's ear and whispers, "I am the alpha."
I'm going to be honest. I just completely skipped past this chapter. I did not read this chapter.
That's fair. I almost skipped it because I was like, oh, personal life, I don't care. But at the same time, his dealings in his personal life have so much of the same foibles that he exhibits in his public life. And also, I'm very happy I got to read that I am the alpha bit, because that was just like such toxic masculinity, but also like hilarious and very incel. I don't know.
And he wasn't joking about it?
No. Basically, I think the bargain he made in his own mind was like, okay, I am going to completely defy my family here, but I will also be the one in control of the marriage. He made her sign a prenup, and he like insisted on this prenup in the way that, like an old rich guy would if they were marrying like a young model or something. And so, yeah, he was doing it very transactionally. And I think Justine was just kind of this like, she was just kind of being carried along. Like, she sounds like a fairly normal person.
Why didn't they like Justine?
I think they didn't think that she matched with his godliness. I think they also thought she was like a little cold. It seems as though Justine was very pretty, but she was also kind of an introvert. Like she liked writing, she liked reading. She wasn't like a party animal. So I think they just thought that there wasn't a vibe match. Mm-hmm. Which, in a lot of ways, I think they were right. In any case, I think the chapter, at least for me, just exemplified all of these flaws that the Musk family has. So in that regard, it was very interesting. But then we move on to this X/PayPal era, or I guess the first X era, where Elon realizes that the banking industry is ripe for disruption. And so he starts this venture called X, which is basically what PayPal is. It allows people to very easily transact money.
I don't know if we talked about this, but while he was in university, he had an internship at a bank. This is one thing I will say. Walter Isaacson is really good at laying these breadcrumbs, because he talks about the fact that when he came to the United States, or Canada rather, he had these traveler's checks, which he lost. And it took them weeks and weeks to replace these traveler's checks. And he's like, this is unbelievable that this is how the system works.
Yep.
And he's already laid the foundations for Tesla. He's laid the foundations for a lot of these other little things that he's going to go on to do.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned, but when he was in college, he was reading white papers about battery technology.
Yeah.
So these truly are lifelong obsessions. You know, space, electric cars, and also to a certain extent, like you're saying, banking.
So they have X, and then like you're saying, there's PayPal, and they're basically starting essentially at the same time, and they're immediately starting to viciously compete with each other, basically.
Yeah. And I think they come to realize that this is a zero-sum game. Like,
yeah,
they basically realize that whichever company achieves a critical mass of users, like that will be the company that basically just eats the other company. So they make a fairly reasonable decision to join the two companies together. And it's a bit tricky. Negotiating with Musk sounds like a massive pain in the ass. He sounds like a Trump-style negotiator, where he basically comes in saying like, oh, I should own 90% of the company.
Yeah.
Which is just this utterly ludicrous thing, because they had about equal user numbers. Peter Thiel, in some ways, had a better brand. Like the PayPal brand they did focus groups, and PayPal sort of had better responses. Like I said earlier, X always seems sleazy to everyone. Like it sounds like a porn site. I think they eventually decided. There was a section where they were talking about like a 55-45 split, where Musk would have 55. But then Musk said something afterwards to the effect of like, oh, I'm getting the better end of this deal. Like he basically torpedoed his own deal. And then they eventually landed on, I think, more or less 50-50. And so there's a hilarious section in here where I guess Peter Thiel was driving with Elon Musk in Elon Musk's McLaren. They were driving together to a meeting, and Peter Thiel was like, oh, what can this McLaren do? And so Musk slams on the gas and just immediately crashes. And so they're in this kind of like horrible accident.
He said that he floored it, and then the rear axle broke. It's like, what kind of a garbage car is that?
That's true, actually. That's very true. Like maybe it was a technological fault. But I guess Peter Thiel is kind of a fierce libertarian, so he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So dude could have easily been killed, but, he survived. And then they just went to this meeting and didn't talk about it.
It's just so crazy to me that, like, do you not wear a seatbelt because you're a libertarian?
It's idiotic. That's the thing. Like, I kind of hate all of these people. Like, I think they're all just narcissists. I think they all love the smell of their own farts. And they think that they're these geniuses. But the truth is, like, they're above average intelligent people. But they're just, like, they just have this, like, I guess it's like a risk-taking appetite that has allowed them to achieve certain things. And also luck. It plays a massive part. Because I think for every Elon Musk, there's like thousands of people who thought they would have been Elon Musk, but just utterly flamed out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Musk doesn't have a monopoly on being this self-aggrandizing asshole. I feel like there are a ton of people who they think they're amazing and they're just actually not.
Yeah.
I do think Elon has met some threshold of competence so that and like you're saying, there's so much luck here where
Right.
he's right there at the time. He manages to sell his company, make $22 million.
Yeah, 15 of which he reinvests into X,
Yeah.
which that's impressive. I mean, you briefly become a super wealthy person, but then you immediately reinvest all of that wealth, or not all of it. He kept 7 million for himself, but most of that wealth back into a new venture. Like, that's impressive. That's a testament to his character.
Yeah. It is. It's interesting because I guess if I'm thinking about math chops, we could have been much more risky with how we approach math chops and just being like, all right, well, we want to grow at any cost.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I guess we could. What would that look like for us? Would we be like pumping a bunch of cash in and like hiring a big team?
Yeah. Trying to find VC funding. I just think I certainly don't have the disposition for that. And I feel like I'm just so happy with what we do have. But I also think that's, this is why a person like me would not become a person like Elon, because I'm kind of a humble engineer. I just want to build cool stuff and kind of put it out into the world. But I think Elon is kind of an empire builder, and he wants to truly dominate industries and utterly change the face of the earth, which I have a fear of changing the face of the earth because you could change it for the worse.
Yeah.
It's like creating AI. If I were creating AI, I would worry about the consequences, almost to the point where I wouldn't want to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah. I mean, what are the negative ramifications of everyone being really, really good at math? Have we ever thought about that?
Well, and that's another thing is I feel like I've always gravitated towards these things where I just can't see a downside.
Yeah.
At Google, I worked on education technology, and I just thought, what possibly could go wrong with helping teachers work with their students? Or, I worked on educational VR tech, and I was like, what could possibly go wrong with having students have this cool educational experience? So I feel like I've always gravitated towards those things in my own career. And I think that's part of what Math Chops is. It just feels like maybe there's a downside, but I just can't see it.
Yeah. No, it's really hard for me to imagine maybe in the AI world, no one's going to need to know any math and it's just a waste of time. But even in that world, I think a knowledge of math itself, it just allows you to appreciate more about how the world works.
I think logic will always be an important ability, and I think learning math helps you develop that skill.
And I was thinking about this in the context of learning engineering. Engineering is really all about just problem solving generally. I think people think of, oh, you learn to be a coder and you learn how to code. And it's well, there's a lot of engineering that is really more about, okay, you're trying to understand a problem, understand a set of tools, and come up with a way to apply the tools to the problem.
Yes.
But that can work in any domain, that doesn't have to be specific to coding.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And this is why, engineers will always be useful. Even if programming is completely handled by some sort of AI utilities, that mode of thinking that you're talking about, being analytical about a problem and sort of understanding which tools can adequately handle the problem, that will always be valuable.
And, we see this in the book, one of the most effective ways of decision making when you're engineering, which is arm wrestling.
Dude, I could tell where you were going with that, and it still got me. This was another interesting aspect of Elon's persona is he will make decisions based on hard evidence and good pragmatic engineering thinking, but then he will also force engineers into arm wrestling contests.
Yeah, challenge the like CTO of the other company to an arm wrestle.
Yeah, and this was in order to figure out whether to use Unix or Windows. Wasn't that what the dispute was?
Exactly, which is so funny because I feel like, at least where we're sitting now, it's like no one in their right mind would build a system on Windows.
It's crazy that Musk was so... I mean, I think Musk had this like idolatry of like these tech billionaires. Like Musk loved Bill Gates and just wanted to use Windows because he thought it was awesome. My guess is Musk looked down on Unix and Linux because it was sort of this communist BS.
Yeah.
But yeah, that arm wrestling thing was awesome. There was also this incredible section that I want to make sure we don't skip about Rudy Giuliani. When Peter Thiel and Musk were navigating the legal ramifications of setting up a pseudo banking entity, they briefly had a meeting with Rudy Giuliani. They were trying to find someone that could sort of help them through like this political, legal quagmire. And this meeting sounded hilarious. Like, apparently Rudy Giuliani, and this was just after Rudy Giuliani was the mayor of New York City. He was in the prime of his career or whatever. He was apparently surrounded by goons. None of Giuliani's people had any understanding of what they were talking about. Like, Peter Thiel and Musk could immediately tell that they were just not technical whatsoever, and they had no expertise. And they were just asking for 10% of the company. I thought this section was hilarious. It's so funny because when I was a kid, I feel like Rudy Giuliani was a well-respected figure.
He was America's mayor. Didn't they call him that?
America's mayor. He had done the RICO thing. He had sort of figured out the legal process through which the 5, mob families could be taken down. So he sort of was this like bright and shining figure in my own childhood. But it's like now that I'm old and I've sort of learned more about him, he's just been completely unmasked as this like just terrible guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought that part was funny.
I think the arm wrestling match was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I think people were pretty upset within PayPal/X. They did wind up merging. I think you might have said this, that they did wind up calling it PayPal because they just thought the name X was super seedy. But
right.
This is kind of this building discontent with Elon Musk in general, I think.
Yes, which built up to Elon Musk finally taking a vacation and going on his honeymoon, which I guess he had delayed like, I want to say years. And so he finally goes on his honeymoon and all of these guys basically oust him from PayPal while he's on his honeymoon.
Yeah, so they really stabbed him in the back. I think we'll leave it there to get into the details next time, but it was pretty dramatic. I mean, talk about mobster movies. It was kind of like that level of drama.
I think it's a moment where I have a lot of sympathy.
Yeah.
Because in spite of like the whole arm wrestling thing, like that's clearly ridiculous. And you can sort of see this momentum building against Elon. And it feels very warranted. Like it just seems like Elon was like this crazy bull in a china shop and they just wanted him out so that they could like focus on building the business.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like Elon really had put in everything into this effort. And here they are like conspiring against him behind his back. Like while the guy's on his honeymoon. It's pretty rough. But we'll discuss that later.
Discuss that next time. All right. Well, I will see you next time, John.
See you next time, Matt.